Hello and welcome to this latest Leigh Centurions TV special. Tonight I'm in the company of greatness. Derek Disley, a club legend.
Oh, thank you, David. Yeah. What have I done then?
Well, you've only gone and passed the microphone to me.
Oh well, I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that, but never mind. I've had 32 good years. You enjoy yourself.
Tell us where it began, really.
Oh dear, where does it? Well, my father informs me that I first watched Leigh when I was 4.
Do you remember it?
No, not a clue who we played. So that was 66 years I've been watching the club. Of course, in those days it was a social affair. It was a town affair. I mean, there was no travelling to Wigan to watch the other lot. You know, there was no such a thing as going to Bolton to watch football. People just didn't go. It was the township. And of course everybody from Leigh watched Leigh. You played rugby up to the age of 11 at junior school. And then they got a rude awakening when I went to grammar school. They had nets on the posts. I'd never seen nets before.
So they didn't play rugby?
After 12 months they started playing rugby union.
How did that go down?
Badly. I played for the school team, but it wasn't the same. It never was the same. There's never been anything to replace rugby league.
So what was your position then?
Oh, I was a flying fullback or winger.
A flying fullback?
Don't look at my figure now.
I started off as a prop and just stayed as a prop.
Well, in those days, you see, as I started playing when I was in my teens, I played football at first because if you played rugby league, there was no clubs like there now. You know, it was a field, kept changed behind edges, and many a time I've gone home on the bus and been thrown off because I've been covered in muck. The bus driver didn't want me on the bus. You know, so things change. But from a 4-year-old, I'm still supporting the club.
Yeah, you deserve a long service medal, I think. I might have mentioned that before.
Yeah, OBE, MBE, Leigh Centurions BE.
LCTV, yeah, let's get them all.
Yeah, I've got the whole log now, haven't I?
So that's your beginnings from a rugby playing point of view, but you also was involved in was you reporting on the game as well, or to a certain extent?
Oh, the first job I had with the club was probably 12 or 13 years of age. Behind my house is situated the old Hilton Park, of course. And I used to go to all the home matches, of course, and I went to the home matches on this occasion, and I noticed that there was nobody putting the numbers up on the old scoreboard. So I thought, well, I'll have a go at that. So probably 12 or 13, and I went round, and there were big slates, I can tell you, very, very heavy. No cover, and we used to play in winter, and they used to play in the snow, of course, and I'd be hiding under the slates, to try and keep dry. But I did that for about 4 years. That was my first job with the club, 4 years, and then I watched the opposite corner where a new scoreboard was being built. A fantastic new thing, indoors, be warm, be lovely in the winter. I was really looking forward to moving from corner to corner.
Okay, and then what happened?
And then the supporters club who built it decided they'd put one of their men in. They didn't need me anymore. So I was redundant. So I was offered a job with the turnstile gangs. So I worked my way up and started working the turnstiles, and eventually I was chief turnstile operator for 10 years.
Right.
Head gateman.
I bet that had its rewards, didn't it?
Oh, it had it. Well, not really, because I used to watch the first quarter of an hour and the last quarter of an hour. Everything else in between I was working, counting the money and checking the numbers, how many was on, what the crowd was. It was an experience, and from there, of course, we developed the hospital radio. I finished up as a commentator on there, and somehow videos appeared.
So how did you get started doing the hospital radio? Because I mean that's something that I do now as well.
Well, this is a good story. This I used to work at BICC for 28 years, and they used to have a monthly newspaper. And I got the monthly newspaper one month, and there was a story in about 6 people that worked at BICC, worked in teams of 2, doing commentaries from Leigh Rugby to the hospital. Now, I'd never heard of that. I knew all the 6 people involved, and I got to talk to them, and I said, what sort of reports have you had? Do you get feedback or anything? No. Talking for 20 years, don't know whether I'm talking to myself or not, was the reply I got. Now, I then had to go in hospital for a cartilage operation.
Right. So
I warned them all at work, I'm going to listen to your commentary, and I'm going to give you feedback. And the 2 people, Winston Hodgson, who was the production engineer at the production manager at the time, and Ray Riley was the personnel manager, good friends of mine, and I listened to their commentary and I reported back. And from then, me and my friend Alan Brown decided we'd follow this up as to whether people were actually listening to it or not. And we put a trace on, and I remember us going round one night to Atherley Hospital and Astley Hospital, which are no longer with us, of course, and Alan was finding this trace because he worked for the British Telecom, and we couldn't find it. It was going into the hospital, but it wasn't going anywhere else. And for years, these 2 lines at both Astley and Atherley had been blocked off and were going nowhere. So nobody was actually listening to it in Atherley and Astley. They'd been doing it for 20 years, thinking people were listening. So we did a bit of rewiring and got it put through to the wards. And then on a Friday night before a home fixture, I used to go around with programmes. The club used to supply me with programmes, and I used to drum up business.
And get them so as they'd be listening on the Sunday.
And what we would do then, when I took over as head gateman, I had a monitor put in my office so we could listen to the commentaries. And then we could report back. And of course, in the end, I gave up the head gateman to take up commentate.
All right. So, do you remember your first game?
No. I remember the first game was a video one. I think it was... we had a night match at Warrington, and Billy Leigh, who was the groundsman at the time, was the only person I knew with a video camera. But his video camera was like this big. He had to sit on his shoulder and everything, you know.
And he didn't have a tripod, did he?
He wouldn't have a tripod, he needed 2 shoulders to put on, really. And we went to Warrington to film this match, and I was there with the microphone in my hand. But I learned a lot from my first lesson, because what I used to do was switch the microphone off when I wasn't talking and switch it on when I did talk. So when we listened and played it back, there was a lot of blanks, you know, because there was no continuity.
Yeah.
So
it was just like a lot of things spliced together, wasn't it?
I was learning. I didn't know that. I learned that. I mean, I learned a lot from the continuity thing when I was doing the hospital radio. I went to another night match to Castleford, and I asked them, could I look at their setup for the hospital radio? And the secretary was very charming young lady. Yes, come in, Mr. Disley. Took me across, introduced me to the guy that was doing the commentary, and I sat behind him, and I listened, and this guy spoke non-stop for 80 minutes. Now, people who are listening in hospital, they didn't know. They had to take his word. What he said, that was true. I remember him saying on one occasion that Phil Fox passed the ball to Des Drummond. Now, as they were playing on opposite wings, that was a bit of a pass. But the people in hospital didn't know that.
No.
And that's one thing I learned again about continuity. You had to keep it going. Talk about anything. You see, you're in a very difficult position now, because you've done hospital radio as well.
Yeah.
Hospital radio and videoing are 2 totally different commentaries.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that can see what's going on, you have to be spot on with your player identification. Now, when you're talking to people in hospital, you can tell them anything you want, and they'll believe you, because they don't know any different.
So I'm reckoning Castleford, I bet it's not changed now, has it, from when you went?
It'll probably still, well, it's still that old wooden stand, and I suppose the box is still in the same place. Oh, probably not the same chap doing the commentary.
You didn't give your Millward tips, did you, when he was off there the other year?
No. But I mean, that's another gripe of mine. You see, the fact that Castleford still have a wooden stand and Wakefield still have a wooden stand, and we had to take ours down and rebuild it.
Different rules for Yorkshire clubs, I think.
In all honesty, I don't want to deviate from the questions, but I don't know if they get a safety certificate, them two, particularly Castleford. But they're in Super League and we're not.
For now.
They're in Super League and we're not.
Oh, there it was. Trying to make it all positive, you know.
No, it'll be hard work for Leigh to get in, particularly now that they're reducing it to 12 teams. So they've got to kick 3 out to take Leigh in, haven't they?
They have, yeah. It's going to be interesting. Put it that way.
Very interesting. But then we're not bothered about them. We're not there yet, have we?
No. We've got lots of things to concentrate on before then, haven't we?
We certainly have.
So when you would have started off on the video side of things, that would have been just after Leigh won the championship, was it?
Yeah, I think it was 1982-83 season. Yeah, that was when we started. Do you know who the first game was?
No, I wasn't going to put you on the spot. I'm just thinking I've got a photographic memory. I was going to test yours out for a minute.
No, I've done so many matches, of course, and.
Have you ever clocked up how many you've actually done?
No, I never tried.
Because I'd be reckoning, 450, 500, 600 games?
Maybe. But some of the places we've done commentaries from have been interesting as well.
Yeah. No, where's the worst place that you've done a commentary from?
Oh, the worst place. Well, when we first started at Leigh, we did it from the at Hilton Park. We did it from the front row of the director's box, which wasn't really very high up. Yeah. You know, and you didn't get a very good view like you do from high up these days. So, but the worst place, I should probably think Whitehaven, somewhere like that.
It's probably still the worst place.
Yeah, it probably still is. Yeah. I won't mention Workington because that has bad memories when we lost 94-4. I don't want to remember that one really.
You've cut that one from, but you actually papered that game, didn't you? Or did you?
Well, what happened was we didn't have a cameraman for some reason that day. The cameraman wasn't available, so I went up on the team coach with the team, as we used to do in those days, and they didn't have a commentator. So we got together and added the commentary for both on the understanding they would give us a copy of the tape. And of course we lost 94-4.
It turned into a video nasty then, was it?
Well,
did you get a copy of it?
We did eventually, but the coach at the time was Ian Lucas and I think the chairman was Mick Higgins, and they wanted to make the players watch it on the way back. Well, we didn't have a copy then because you couldn't do 2 copies at once in those days. But on the brighter side, I have run out of paper when we beat Keighley 92-2.
Tell us about that one. I mean, that was a really quick Leigh back line, wasn't it, that particular year?
Oh, certainly was.
Like to Steve Halliwell running in loads of tries.
5, I think, on that day or something like that. But of course they were giving him tries on that year to try and get him up to 50, I think.
Because there was a famous old story, wasn't there, at the time about them all meant to be clubbing the money together for him getting the top try scorer award.
They would run through and make the break, beat the fullback, and then turn around and wait for Halliwell to arrive and give him the ball to score under the post.
So really, the likes of Drummond and Phil Fox would have probably have got another 20 tries each.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, he'd done the score early in the season, and of course, after one season he left us, didn't he?
He went to St Helens, didn't he?
Went to St Helens, yes, and I will remember his first match. His home match was against somebody called Leigh.
Right.
Straight from the kick-off, ball to Halliwell, Cottrell to Halliwell carried off.
So there you mention a man, Tony Cottrell. What a player!
Oh, fantastic player! All out effort. But there's been a lot of them, haven't there?
So if I was to ask you then, I know I'm perhaps putting you a bit on the spot here, about your favourite team for Leigh that you've seen and commentated on?
Oh, no, that's a hard one.
You know, I'm thinking fullbacks. You know, there's been some good ones, hasn't there?
Oh, well, obviously I've gone through the started off with a leg guard and with Turley and Norman Turley's lad. Who else? Well, yeah, one or two come to mind, of course, but not all goal kickers. I mean, when I started, the fullback's job was to kick goals.
Okay.
In most teams, the fullback kick goals. I mean, anybody kicks them these days, don't they? Prop forwards.
They do, yeah. I saw a game a few weeks ago with the prop forward kicking at goal. It just seems a bit odd, that, really.
Well, it doesn't seem right, really, but the game's changed, hasn't it? Some people said it's improved. I'm not sure in some departments.
We'll come to that in a bit, because I will ask you, you know, a little bit about where you think the game is heading and what you preferred. I know what my thoughts are, but okay, so you got your full-back. Wingers, Desi Drummond?
I suppose Billy Kingdon.
Right, that is a blast from the past, isn't it? It's got loads
really
of tries.
Well, Billy used to be chairman of the Ex-Players Association. And excuse me, I want to remember when Trevor Allen came over, and he came to our house, and I arranged for him to go and meet the ex-players at Hilton Park. And Trevor was a good lad, you know. He really enjoyed meeting all his ex-players, and they made a presentation to him, and it was actually done by Paul Rowley.
Right.
Paul Rowley presented him with an autographed football. And the first thing, Bill Kingdon, of course, was chairman, and he did the introductions. And the first thing Trevor did was flip the ball to Billy Kingdon, who wasn't expecting it, and dropped it.
Right.
To which Trevor said, "Nothing's changed." But I mean, talking about Trevor Allen, of course, the one glory game of Emmanuel MacDonald Bailey.
Oh yes.
The crowd of over 10,000 on the Tilton Park.
Was this on a Wednesday night or something?
It was midweek, definitely midweek, under floodlights, yes. And Trevor we're telling me the story because Trevor played centre to him, and Ernie Ashcroft was the Wigan captain.
Okay.
And everything was geared up for Bailey to score a try, but he couldn't catch the ball.
Okay.
So eventually, I think it took him to the second half before he finally got over the line, and then the Wigan captain came to Trevor Allen and said, "Can we get on with the game now?"
I've actually seen that footage of MacDonald Bailey taking somebody on. He must have been able to catch that ball at one point. Maybe that was the try that he scored.
Well, it would be, because he only scored the one. But he did score in every game he played for Leigh.
Oh, see, they got 100% record, really.
Well, that's right, you can't complain about that, can you? If only everybody did that.
So did you actually see much of Trevor Allen as a player on the field for Leigh at the time?
Oh yes, of course. When Trevor came over, what would it be, in 51, I think, and then 53, of course, was when we had over 31,000 people at Hilton Park for a cup quarter final against St Helens, if I recall.
And were you one of them doing the scoreboard?
No, I was only, that was 53. I'd only been 9 at the time, I think.
Okay.
9 at the time, but in those days we had a kids' pen.
I've heard rumours about this kids' pen.
Yeah,
Tell
kids'
us a
pen.
little bit about it.
It used to be to the left of the main stand, and not nowadays. I mean, it was children only. People would bring their children and move them in and pick them up after. That was it. But I remember being on the front row for that match. I do remember that match. I don't remember the score. Well, you had to be there early. 31,000. Was it 326 or something?
I can't physically imagine that.
No. I mean, I was there, and I can't. You know, and I saw it all. I mean, there were bodies everywhere. There was no space nowhere at all.
Right. I just think that was an amazing part of rugby league history, wasn't it? Because during the 50s, everything there was real crowd boom and.
Well, there was. I mean, we talked about the MacDonald Bailey game. Over 10,000 for a midweek friendly match. Friendly match. I mean, you wouldn't get that these days, would you?
No, you'd be looking at about 3,000 for.
Nowadays, everybody has to have a ground that holds 12,000 to get in Super League, and then they draw attendances of 2,000 or 3,000.
It does make you wonder what's the point in having having such a large ground in the first place, doesn't it? I mean, I'm sure that we can talk about the sports village and the crowds that's generated so far for the club. But okay, so we spoke Trevor Allen. We spoke Matt.
Trevor Allen was a personal friend of mine. We still exchange his widow Judy. We still exchange Christmas cards.
So how did you get friendly with him then afterwards?
Well, in 1991 it would be, late 1991, we formed the Players Association at the Hall of Fame. And they had to vote. I think only said with 10 or 12 players, and Trevor Allen was naturally one of the choices. And they had in the old bar on the Johnny Woods bar, they had a night where they sort of introduced all the players that were into the Hall of Fame. Excuse me. But of course Trevor lived in Australia, so he sent a video of him sitting on his back porch looking out. It looked as though he lived in the jungle, to be honest. I mean, there were rare parrots and birds and all sorts flying around. I'll tell you more about that later, because I finished up on that back porch as it happened. Okay. So in 1992, me and the wife went on the tour down under, and we stayed in Sydney, and I got the telephone directory out the first day, and Pauline said, what are you doing? I said, I'm looking Trevor Allen's telephone number up. So I rang, I only rang 3 Allens, and I got Trevor. And I also said to Trevor was, Trevor, Derek Disley, I'm the video commentator for Leigh Rugby League Club. And his first words were, you're from Leigh? Where are you? And that was it. We made arrangements to meet not the day after we were going to a match, but the day after that. Trevor said, I'll be round with my wife and we'll spend the day together.
Great.
And we did. But we weren't the only people from Leigh that were on the tour, of course. I remember Gary O'Connell and his brother, I can't remember his name, he was now living in Scotland. So they said, can you introduce us to Trevor? I said, certainly. So Trevor arrived, I recognised him straight away, I introduced myself, Judy was there with him. I said, there's 2 other couples from Leigh, would you like to meet them? And he said, yeah. And we all got together talking. And something that happened here that I didn't know. And we were talking about his first night in Leigh. Okay. Now, in his first night in Leigh, there used to be a picture place at the top of Bradshawgate, and they stopped the film to introduce Trevor on stage.
Well, of course, he was a superstar of both.
Oh yeah. So he was the Rugby Union Australian skipper, of course. And Trevor was on about this, and Trevor says, he says, and somebody said, what happened next? Gary's brother said, what happened next? He said, on the way out, he said, all the press were there. He said, and they asked for a photograph. He says, and I remember grabbing this little lad, he said, this little 8-year-old lad, he said, I remember him being 8, he said, and I grabbed him, and I had my photograph taken with him. And Gary's brother said, that was me.
Really?
I mean, I could have dropped through the floor when he said that, and so could Trevor. I mean, Trevor was what are the odds of that happening?
That's amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
12,000 miles from home.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that, blimey.
So you can't get better than that. That was wonderful memories for Trevor.
Yeah, that's like Cilla Black surprise all over again, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is to a certain extent. I mean, I didn't know what to say. I was really taken aback because I didn't know that fact. In fact, I didn't know Gary's brother until we went on the tour together.
Right. And of course, this was the tour which you probably saw more game time than Ellery Hamley did.
Well, he was only the captain, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
20 minutes, I think he did. 20 minutes, yeah. I did more than that.
I mean, they're sadly almost a thing of the past, aren't they, the tours? I mean, how was it organised?
That I think was the last Great Britain tour as such, because they played the first test before we went to Australia, because it was like a month-long tour.
Okay.
But going back to Trevor tells me that when he first came over with the Australian tourists, they played for 6 months.
Oh yes, they did. They had really long tours, didn't they? Because
6 months.
It took the best part of 2 or 3 months for them to get here, didn't it?
Well, that's right. Because when he signed for Leigh, he said he got married to Judy, and he said we came over on the boat. It took 6 or 8 weeks, I think. He said, and we had a honeymoon on the boat, so he wasn't too bothered about that because somebody else was paying.
It's a good way, that, isn't it? Really? Got somebody else to pay for your honeymoon.
Oh, great guy was Trevor. Great guy. He'd always time for anybody from Leigh.
It perhaps just shows.
In fact, his daughter was called Leigh, you know.
Really?
Spelt Leigh. She's been to our house, and she came with her husband, Ken Crocombe, I think his name is. He's a Kiwi. Didn't go well. An Australian marrying a New Zealander.
No,
but nevertheless,
it's a bit like a Lancastrian marrying a Yorkshire woman.
Yeah. Now, Ken came over to work in Wigan somewhere for about a couple of months, and Trevor rang me and said, would I look him up and have a chat to him? So I met up with him in the Musketeer and we had a drink, and he says, in a week's time Leigh's coming over to stay with me for a week, and then I'm going back with her. I said, oh, okay, well, we'll meet up then. Now, in the meantime, there was some celebration going on around Leigh because we had all these flags up saying welcome to Leigh. So I said to Ken, I said, I've arranged for all the flags to be put up for Leigh. And he said, yeah, all right. So we picked them up in the car, and we're riding through Leigh, and there are all these flags. Welcome to Leigh. And she thought I'd arranged all this on her behalf, you see.
She would have loved you.
Oh yeah, she was a great girl, yeah.
Did you ever tell her that you didn't actually arrange that?
Oh, yeah, of course I did. Yeah. After a while. In fact, I think we rang Trevor from our house while she was here, and I had to admit to Trevor on the phone. But he would appreciate something like that. Yeah. Going back to Trevor, you know, when we were in Sydney, we had a day out with him and his wife. Took me and Pauline all around Sydney to places you wouldn't see. We didn't go over the Sydney Bridge, Harbour Bridge. We went under it. Under it, because there's a big posh seafood restaurant under it near Bondi Beach or somewhere, and he took us to all these different places, and we finished up having a picnic overlooking the harbour on the hilltop. Absolutely fantastic. And then after in the afternoon we were going back to their place, and he kept saying to Judy, do you think they'll be there? They won't let us down, will they? And I thought, what's he talking about? Anyway, we got back to their house about 4 o'clock, and she said, you're all right. We sat out on the porch, which we'd seen on the video, so we knew where we were. And then she came out with raw meat.
Right. You're thinking this is a bit of a strange barbecue effect, is it? In the afternoon?
Piece of this raw meat, you know, and then suddenly kookaburras appear. And I mean kookaburras, 24 of them appear, and they sit on the back rail, and we feed them all raw meat. And they come every day to it. They used to come every day to his back porch, same time every day.
They'd be eating him out of house and home.
Absolutely phenomenal scene. You know, I mean, when we saw the video, it was just though we lived in the jungle.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't really the jungle. It was on the edge of the outback, I suppose you would call it.
Right.
As they call it in Australia.
So, Kookaburra, from Kookaburra back to Leigh, eh?
Yep. Feed the pigeons in the town hall square. not quite the same thing.
It doesn't have quite the same ring to it, does it, somehow? Okay. So, obviously you got to know Trevor and his family really well, though, and you still keep in touch.
Still keep in touch.
And moving on. Okay, so I'm guessing you'll have Trevor Allen in as your centre, would you?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Probably Teddy Kerwick as well.
Right. And
he was Harris at half back, and
he was a very. I'm just thinking back to Kerwick.
One person I would have in when we were talking forwards, the first choice forward would always be Charlie Palsy.
Okay.
Because I remember Trevor telling me about Charlie Palsy, and somebody clobbered Trevor in his first game. And Trevor got up and shook his head, didn't know where he was. He said, and Charlie Palsy came to him, put his hand on his shoulder and said, "You get on with your game, leave him to me."
Right.
And he didn't finish the match.
And of course, Charlie Palsy goes down as one of the hardest forwards in rugby league history, doesn't he?
Yeah, but off the field and afterwards, he was a great guy again. He was a wonderful person to talk to. And great knowledge of the game as well. So, like you say, he was hard, but he was fair and he could play a bit.
So, would the likes of Tim Street fall into the mix?
No, I don't think so.
No?
Not when you've got Robinson, Taburn, Owen in the front row. No. No, I don't think Timmy Street would qualify.
He wasn't hard enough.
I would have respect for Tim, because I knew Tim quite well, but no, he wouldn't come into their class.
I know there's a big almost awe about a lot of those forwards from the 50s. I mean, a lot of people still speak very fondly of the likes of Mick Teague over at Wigan, for example.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're a different breed of forwards. They weren't as fast as they are these days. Everybody's it's like 13 backs a side now, isn't it? Really.
So tell us a bit about Stan Oating then.
There's only one person that Stan Owen was ever afraid of. That was his missus.
Right.
Whatever she said went. But Stan, again, great guy.
Over 400 games for Leigh as well, isn't he?
Oh, must have done, yeah.
In fact, that was a real hard wearing front row if you included, Taburn in there and Bill Robbie. Yep, well, once we started the videos in 82 or whatever it was, we've seen a lot of players come and go in that time. And a lot of changes to the rules. 6 tackles, 4 tackles, back to 6 tackles, 4 tackles again. Changed the scoring system and everything, haven't we? Yeah, because it was 3 points for a try, of course.
3 points for a try and 2 points for any goal.
Yeah. There was a rumour that it was Alex Murphy who got that changed down to 1 point because they didn't like his way of winning all the games back in the early 70s.
Well, it was Eddie Waring that made the comment on the 71 Cup final commentary, wasn't it? That when Murphy dropped a goal, that won't be worth 2 points next season.
He already knew then.
It doesn't matter, he won the cup for us.
Definitely, yeah. So, what do you remember of that day then? I'm guessing you must have gone down to Wembley then.
Oh, definitely. Went down in the car about 5 o'clock, I think. Came back the same day. I wasn't driving at the time. I didn't drive at the time. So went with a friend because I was working at the LUT, I think, at the time. So he was a bus driver, so he knew his way around. But that was a never to be forgotten day. Never to be forgotten.
So perhaps take us through it. So you got down there at what time did you get down to Wembley?
Oh, David, it's 1971. We're going back 42 years.
You said it was never a forgotten day, so I'm just running you through it.
Remember, everything went so well, because we went down there to make the numbers up. We weren't in with a chance. What was the score? 24-7, but we weren't in with a chance. We were just making the numbers up. And then there was the dismissal of Mr. Hines. Again, Mr. Murphy was involved. Looked like it.
Because it doesn't really catch it on the video, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, you keep watching it on the video.
Now these days, if it was a Sky game, for example, they'd have about 6 cameras on there, wouldn't they?
Oh yeah, they'd have a blower camera, wouldn't they?
But yeah, fantastic day. What about the homecoming? Because I've read stories about everywhere from Astley down being.
Well, I was at the front of the town hall somewhere. It was a hard job seeing them come back.
Yeah.
Good to see. I wouldn't have missed it for the world, but.
So I guess, like everybody had, everybody's got their own story, haven't they, from that?
Oh, they will have, yeah. Certainly will have. I mean, there's other games that stand out as well, though. I mean, I think it was the second season that we were doing the commentary. So in the second season, there was the infamous match at Oldham.
Is that the one where everybody ended up in a brawl and it got
abandoned after?
There's a special day regarding that as well, wasn't it? Because Phil Johnson's debut, I seem to recall him saying something about it in some programme note somewhere.
Well, I know we did the commentary, and we had to stop anybody getting their hands on the tape,
right?
Because it became evidence. Because I don't think Oldham were doing it. I don't think Oldham were into videos in those days.
So Leigh were one of the first.
Yes,
to do videos.
Eventually, when I went through all the rugby league courts and the decision was made on the clubs being fined or whatever they were fined, it was then the actual incident was then shown on BBC national television, and I well remember the commentator, the presenter that introduced it said, "With commentary." I thought it was a big surprise,
Right.
So we made history in those days.
Was that your BBC debut?
BBC debut, yes.
Any more appearances on the Beeb?
Yes, I've been on again. And there was another television before Sky came. There was one called Screen Sport.
Okay.
They were based in Knutsford, and I remember we went to Barrow for a match, and there was a little notice in the Sunday People about they were looking for a commentator.
Okay.
So I applied and got the job. I only did the one job. It was an international at Castleford.
Right.
I did it with a co-commentator who went on to be a famous comedian. I don't remember his name though. He didn't know anything about rugby.
You're used to that though, aren't you? Co-commentators who don't know anything about rugby.
We've had one or two of those now times, yeah. But then we've had some that could talk and wouldn't stop talking. I mean, Phil Ford comes to mind. If Phil wasn't playing, he'd talk.
Right.
But he wouldn't need me.
He just got his own mic and
but he was knowledgeable. I enjoyed doing it. Now the players these days, you can't get them interested, really, can you?
Oh, I don't know. We've had our moments, but only one or two of them, I have to say. Yeah.
Oh yes, we've had Mr. Brayley and Mr. Ridyard one match this season, didn't we?
They've already told me about how much they've shown me, and taught me my role now.
There was another game, of course, in that same season. The John Woods match. When we went to Leeds at the back end of the season. When he kicked, it's 3 tries and 6 scores, I think. I think it was Leeds 18, John Woods 24.
Right.
On a Wednesday night, never to be forgotten night. But another incident that happened at Headingley was Norman Turley talking over the PA system.
How did he manage that?
Well, they just. Keith Latham was the coach at the time and Norman was the assistant, you see. So Norman would go high up and they would communicate with walkie-talkies. Well, you had to have the walkie-talkie and they're still learning how to use them. But Norman's was tuned in to the same frequency as the PA system. So Keith asks him something and Norman tells the whole crowd.
So 10,000 Leeds people are thinking, what's he going on about?
Who's that? Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Any more
technology?
Funny?
It's called technology.
I know. We always seem to struggle, don't we, somewhere along the line. So any more sort of memorable or funny moments like that?
Oh, memorable or funny moments? Oh, I don't know really. Not that we can talk about it, don't we?
No. I recall a couple of commentaries that you did with Dennis Beardsworth, where Dennis was describe about 4 different players all in one run, and it was the same player who never passed the ball. which was quite funny at the time.
Yeah.
Would have been great as a radio commentary, like we touched on before.
Like I say, it's a big difference. Like I said before, there's a big difference between radio and video, and now that you're trying to do two at once, you can't do it.
I never shut up.
Oh no, you keep the continuity going, but you know, it's all right. The people listening to LeighLife.com in America, but when you start mentioning, you know, people that are watching the video don't want to know that because they can see what's going on. I really think they should be kept separate, you know, David.
Really?
Or you should have two wages.
One
would be nice.
I shall mention that to Leigh Life and the club as well. Okay, so we've already spoke about front rows. Back rowers, you would have seen quite a lot of Mickey Martin.
Oh yeah, I once played in a trial match on the training pitch that is now B&Q.
Is this a claim to fame coming up?
No.
You're not dropping another name, are you?
I was playing fullback, and who should they both through but Mickey Martin? I thought, what do I do with them? You know. But I didn't need to run after Mickey because Mickey didn't run round people; he ran through them. But somehow I managed to hold on. I couldn't get him down, but he didn't get past me. So that's my claim to fame.
That's your claim to fame. You tackled Mickey Martin. Yeah. Well, a lot of players they didn't in the time. I mean, was it? 189 tries he scored for Leigh during his playing days, something like that.
He knocked the Australians about, didn't he?
I think has he still got the record for most tries on a tour? I seem to recall something of he scored like about 20 odd tries.
Well, then again, in those days they didn't just play test matches, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I went, I remember us going to Newcastle. And now there's another claim to fame, Newcastle. The game was covered by Sky Television, you see.
Okay.
And apparently they played the national anthem, and they were going down the line of Great Britain players. And when they got to Gary Connolly, who was the reserve fullback on that tour, I think, they suddenly switched to the stand, me and my wife. From Gary Connolly, me and my wife, and these two other couples, Gary O'Connell and his brother from Leigh and their wives, and we were all there with our Leigh flags singing the national anthem. Now, of course, we don't know that. We're in Australia, so...
I was just going to say, you were actually teaching the words to Gary Connolly, weren't you?
Probably. When we get to Brisbane for the third test, I ring home, you see, and ring my son's wife, and she says, "Oh, hello." She says, "Oh, Ma, you're looking well." And I'm looking at the telephone box, you know. How can she tell I'm looking well, you know? And I said, "What do you mean I'm looking well?" She said, "Well, we saw you on television the other night." I said, how come? She said, "Oh, singing the national anthem." And when I got back to work, there were 6 copies of it on my desk that people had recorded for me. So that's my claim to fame in Australia.
Have you still got those copies anywhere?
I have one hanging about somewhere, actually. Right. Yeah.
We can watch it afterwards. So you can find it. So with all these games that you've covered, we've talked about the tour and like your thoughts of that tour and your memories. Memorable Leigh games over, I don't know, the last 20 years or so.
Well, Wembley would be top of the pops, but that's more than 20.
That's a little bit longer. Yeah.
I suppose the midweek trip to Whitehaven in '82 to clinch the championship.
Was that filmed?
I'm led to believe someone did have a camera, but I never saw any footage of it.
Right.
That's where we decided that we would then try the videos.
Yeah.
So we thought we had an outlet if we were champions.
And so it proved.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now you're millionaires, you see. You and your dad.
Maybe in the next lifetime, I don't know. I think as well, when you look at some of the games that you must have covered, I'm sort of thinking 1980s, mid to late 80s, Challenge Cup runs. There was a semi-final over at Wigan, wasn't there, between Leigh and St Helens? Did you get to
Yeah, we got to one or two semi-finals. We just couldn't get there, could we? Over the final. I remember even as a schoolboy getting the cane for going and watching Leigh in a replay at Swinton against Barrow. I should have been playing rugby. Oh, it was straight after school and straight to the rugby match, I'm afraid, and the cane the day after.
Was it worth it?
Swine of a headmaster he was.
It's a schoolboy confessions. I feel like I've drifted into that sort of territory.
Let me ask you something. How do you find the video? And I mean, now you go to all these different grounds where they've got a video of the games now, haven't they?
They do,
Our clubs, in case anything happens, any instance, you've got a video of the game. Well, when I started, of course, there was only us did it, I think.
Right. So I suppose it's.
When we used to ring clubs and say, "Come and do a video." What do you mean? What's a video? So.
Hang on, it's still a bit like that in certain parts of Yorkshire.
Oh, I can well imagine.
No, I think it's just like we were saying about how the game's moved on, isn't it? I mean, a lot of coaches use videos to do stats off. They use it to pinpoint parts and weaknesses in the opposition, don't they?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, we didn't have action replays in the early days. For a long, long time, we didn't have action replays, so they have to keep playing the same clip back and back to see what happened. How they can slow it down, speed it up, turn it sideways, and anything.
Yeah, on its head even.
And now Sky are doing how many tackles they've had in which area of the ground, and I don't know.
And referee cams.
Referee cams, yeah. They were interesting, aren't they?
Yeah, I've not seen a good picture from one yet.
But I mean, there again, it's same as the replay. If all games are not being, I'm not using the technology, then it shouldn't be used for me. Because when they play without the screen and when they play with the screen, to me they play under different rules.
They've got to make a decision, haven't they, where they can refer it on.
And we had the decision the other weekend when Charnley scored against Huddersfield, but he quite clearly put the ball down on the in-goal touch.
Yeah, I never thought that was a try.
There was no way it was a try.
I still don't know how it was given. All I can think is that the video referee at the time must have fallen asleep in his console.
And then there was an incident in the cup semi-final at the Sports Village where they pulled London up and gave a penalty for a high tackle on Sam Tompkins. Brian Noble in the commentary said, "No, that wasn't a high tackle." And Jonathan Davies said, "I just think the touch judge wants to get on the television."
Oh yes, I remember that comment. Yeah, it was probably one of Jonathan Davies.
Now, if we said something like that, if we said something like that on a Leigh match, we'd be biased.
Yeah. In fact, we have said things like that on a Leigh match. I just remember your beratings of Steve Ganson, for example.
Oh yes, I've had some run-ins with referees. I once got booked, with the referee.
Did you?
Yeah, I was when I was head game.
After the game. No.
After the game, I was head gamer at the time, and I used to go back with the figures to the office after the match, and I think it was John Taylor, was it? John Taylor, standoff, had been sent off, and the referee came in to John Stringer's office to ask for his address because he had to put it in the report, you see. And he said something. Oh, John Stringer said Edinburgh, and he tried to spell it. The referee and couldn't, So I just said, "Oh, comedian off the field as well as on." Name. My name went in as well. I didn't get any matches.
No. It would be interesting to see whether they would do any bannings, wouldn't it, of anybody these days for something like that.
But the games moved on, I suppose, as a spectacle, but this technology has gone over the top now for me.
There's too much scrutiny in a certain extent as well.
Well, it's taking that long that they start putting a stopwatch on the video referee to see how long he takes.
And then they talk about it for 5 minutes, don't they?
And then the blokes that are doing the commentary have made their decision, and then it comes to the opposite decision, and then they have Steve who have they got with them now?
They've got Stuart Cummins, haven't
Stuart Cummins. And what about that, Stuart? And he gives his opinion, then the referee goes totally the opposite way.
Yeah, I've got to ask you, because I think Stuart Cummins was the referee when Leigh played Wigan back in 2002 in the Challenge Cup. It's a real filthy day, bit of a filthy game really, to be honest, but Leigh were well in with a shout of actually knocking Wigan out, weren't they, until a rather contentious decision.
Oh, I'm not allowed to comment on referees' decisions.
Oh, yeah, you've been doing it for 30 years.
I'll be biased again.
I'm going to be putting you on the spot again.
Well, it's not one match that sticks out in my mind, I must confess, David.
No.
But I have had some run-ins with referees, and I've ridiculed them at times.
I'm sure that, everybody, or every referee of the time must have a DVD of Derek Disley comments somewhere.
Yeah. There used to be a referee called Steve Cross,
Oh yes.
Do you remember Steve Cross?
Was he from Hull?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
he was from Hull. We got very friendly with him.
You don't get friendly with referees.
Oh yes, we got very.
It's fraternising with the enemy.
In fact, I remember us going to St Helens when Murphy was the coach, and Steve Cross was the referee, and my wife went as Mrs. Cross. She said she had to sit in the director's box and not speak. Never again. But I knew Steve from his days when he used in business, actually. We first talked on business, on transport at work, and then he came down to referee the miners match. Right. And I knew him. I still know him, in fact. He now is the commissioner at matches. And Frank Taylor told me only a month ago that he'd been to a match where Steve Cross was the commissioner, and he actually asked about me. So I've not been forgotten.
No, I'm not. You never been.
In fact, I'll tell you a story. I took him a video many moons ago. We got to the quarter-final of the Challenge Cup, and we were playing Hull away. Billy Benyon was the coach, and James Leigh was playing with us at the time. Billy Benyon's rules were all players go on the team coach. Mm-hmm. But of course James had friends and wanted to stay in Hull after the match.
Okay.
So I got the call, would I drive his wife to Hull in his car and then come back on the team coach after? I said, yeah, fair enough. So we met up at Hilton Park and got in his car, and the coach went, and half an hour later we were still in the car park. He got an automatic, and I'd never driven one before. His wife must have thought I was a right dipstick because I couldn't get the car out of the car park.
Did you eventually get it?
Eventually we got it going, yeah. It was about swinting before I found out how to drive it properly, I think. But we got to Hull, yeah. All was well in the end, and I came back on the team coach.
That sounds like a memorable trip in its own right, really, doesn't it?
But I took a video with me to give to Steve Cross. I went called round to Steve Cross's in James Leigh car with James Leigh's wife. Steve said, who's that in your car? I said, oh, it's not my car, it's not my wife.
Yeah, he was famed up at Hull, wasn't he, James Leigh? And quite ironic that we end up with his lad playing for us many years later.
Yeah. Oh yes, he was one of the, when they had the glory team, wasn't he? When they had the big cup final against Wigan, which will be reminisced at in a fortnight's time.
Yeah. I mean, it's gone down that, hasn't it, as one of the best finals of all time, if not the best final.
Yeah.
That was two teams of fantastic quality, weren't they, back in '85?
Oh, that was a classic game of rugby league, as it should be played. With who was that Wigan standoff who walked about with his hands in his pockets?
It wasn't Brett Kenny, was it?
That was him, Brett Kenny, yeah. Walked about before the pre-match with his hands in his pockets.
There's not a care in the world. Typical Australian attitude, though, in some respects.
We have done a commentary from Wembley. Have you done that?
I've not done... yeah, I have done a commentary.
The old Wembley.
But not the old Wembley, no.
The old Wembley.
Tell us about it.
1994. The cup final was between Leeds and Wigan. The infamous lighting a fire try when he turned Alan Tate inside out. But the commentary I did was pre-match when Leigh schoolboys played Morley schoolboys.
Okay.
That was a proper game of rugby. That was. The schoolboys smashed them. But a good day.
Get
out.
In there, Leigh.
Good day out, and then we had to watch Wigan win the cup after. That was
that's not such
the
a
only
good day.
drawback.
So, was there any stories sort of behind that then, and getting to Wembley and?
Well, yeah, there was actually, because I got a phone call one day and said, would I be interested in going to Wembley with the boys and doing the commentary? They wanted to do a video of it for the boys to keep. And I said yes. So I turned up at a meeting about a month before to be told that the BBC had refused to let us film it. So we didn't know what to do really, because they wanted a memento, because a team had been before and got nothing to remember it with. So I rang the BBC, and I think
just like you do.
As you do, you know, from work. And I think the Director General at the time was a gentleman called Alan Yentob, I think his name was. So I got through to the BBC and I just asked for Mr. Yentob, as one does, like, and I got his secretary.
How did you manage to get so far?
I don't know. I've got a clue. So I told her the story. I said, we just want to record it for these boys, and everything's in place, and leave it with me. And then a couple of days later I got a phone call at work from I think it was the outside broadcast manager, and his opening gambit was, you don't ring Mr. Yentob. I said, why? Nobody rings Mr. Yentob. He said, I did. I said, otherwise you won't be ringing me. So we talked it over man to man, and he was offering if the time they would show some of the match. I don't want you to show some of the match. The boys want a memento of the old match. We just want to do a video of it as it happens. And in the end he conceded.
Right.
Now poor Morley schoolboys didn't take up the challenge, you see.
Or they just accepted the Beeb's decision?
We had to give them a copy of ours. Of our tape.
It's not the first time you'll have done a commentary for an opposition team, though, is it?
Oh no, no, but it's a great experience. Interviewed all the lads on the way down on the court, and all the teachers and everything. Oh, it was a brilliant weekend. Wouldn't have missed it for the world.
I wonder what the Morley parents would have been thinking about, though. Thinking, right, we've got a video, let's put it on. Oh, it's all the Leigh left.
Oh no, I don't think I was too biased.
Never too biased.
But it was a great weekend. Great weekend.
What a story as well, though. I still can't. I'll tell you what, I'm going to go on and try and do that myself to get more rugby league coverage. I'll see how far it gets me. Wish me luck.
You just got to speak to people, haven't you?
And I think that's been one of your strengths all the way through, hasn't it?
Well, I'll talk to anybody. Is that what you mean?
Well, you would chat to me anyway.
Yeah, I don't mind talking to anybody, particularly about rugby league. But if you're talking about the game and you know about the game, and of course, I was once runner-up in the Supporter of the Year competition. You know,
the Supporter of the Year.
Yeah, did a Supporter of the Year competition.
Was this just Leigh, or was this?
Oh no, this is the whole of rugby league. I was in the last 5.
Go on, what year was this then?
Oh my God. Brian Sharples was the chairman at the time.
Okay.
So you work it out from that.
You're asking the wrong one, ain't you?
No, it was won by an 81-year-old Oldham supporter who went to all Oldham's away matches by bike.
By bike?
He went on the bike, and I watched him home and away, and I went by bike.
Crikey. I do remember in the mid-90s there was one of the photographers that went round rugby league on his bike. He ended up doing all kinds of stuff down at Leigh Miners, and also he did a few games with Leigh as well.
Oh, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah. He was always keen on, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But travelling everywhere by bike, it's like a throwback to the 1920s, that, isn't it?
It makes me feel old when he was going on a bike and I was going in a car.
So what did you get as runner-up then in the...
nothing, just to mention in the newspapers and all that. But
just to mention, just the occasional mention again. It's this Derek Disley scrapbook, isn't it? It must be packed.
No, I've thrown it away. It was getting too big. But it's what do I do next season now, you know, I mean...
You're always welcome.
No, I'll have to see. Might be the new coach, you never know. 70-year-old coach, be alright.
Are you just doing your best to try and annoy Paul Rowley?
No. Good friend of mine, Paul. Plenty of time for Paul.
I mean, there was... Paul was perhaps my favourite player going through, for the players that I've seen at Leigh.
Recently, yeah, of course. When it was him and Baldwin, and there was three of us we had in the under.
Yeah, there was Scott Martin.
Scott Martin was the other one. Yeah. I remember watching them three at. They played at Wembley in a junior international as curtain raisers. I think it was England and Great Britain and New Zealand.
Right. Was that when I think John Keir was the coach then, wasn't he, of the Great Britain Academy?
I don't know. I remember being in the restaurant behind the press box.
Right.
Don't ask me how I got there.
Oh, well, that was going to be my next question, actually.
But I remember me and Pauline we were in the restaurant and we went down by plane and back. Same day.
I'm just thinking that junior Kiwi team that would have played against Great Britain that day probably had Henry Paul in it, didn't it?
Probably had the Iro brothers as well, I think.
Yeah. It was, mind you, they always say, don't they, there's a telephone directory full of Iros in New Zealand.
Yeah, probably. Common name, yeah.
I have to admit, if I was to go back over your commentaries, my favourite one of yours, if you don't mind me saying.
You remember it?
I do, yes. Yeah. 2006, the Northern Rail Cup final. Over at Blackpool against Hull Kingston Rovers. We were heavily...
Oh yes, we went to make up the numbers.
Yeah, heavy underdogs.
To make up the numbers.
Was it Hull KR had about 23 games unbeaten?
Oh, I'm going to flying start as well. It was over within the first 20 minutes, if I recollect.
Yeah, 16-0 I think, wasn't it, at one point? And then just fighting back.
Then we came back and got a try on benefit of doubt.
Yeah.
I remember that. I missed those finals.
Yeah.
Because they stopped us doing them after that.
They did, although we did manage a comeback this year.
Yeah. Surprise.
Yeah.
But why have it at Halifax? Jeepers creepers.
There's probably better places it could have gone, to be fair.
I bet they've not even got a railway station.
That's what everybody always says about Leigh, don't they? About bringing things down here. It's like, why are we having this cup semi-final in Leigh when there's no railway station? Well, London only brought about 10 people anyway.
That was a bit of a farce, that, wasn't it? Wigan had to travel 8 miles and London had to travel 208.
I think it was just that, they wanted a crowd, I think. Had they played it anywhere else, there wouldn't have been half as many people.
They didn't get a big crowd of that. What did they get then?
I think it was about 6,300.
And to be honest, there were plenty of spaces the day after when Hull played Warrington.
There was. Where do you think it's gone wrong? Because I think
I think moving it to August has not helped, and Super League's just taken over. I think they've totally downgraded the Challenge Cup.
It's like secondary competition, really. For teams to win. It's a shame, really, because it's got such prestige about it, doesn't it?
Well, it was the big day out for all supporters. Now they're trying to ruin that by having the Magic Weekend.
I have to admit, I've worked a couple of those Magic Weekends. They're not a patch on cup finals.
No, we once went to the Challenge Cup final in Edinburgh. They had it at Murrayfield, and I remember walking around Edinburgh, and me and the wife went in a store. I can't remember which one it was, for a cup of coffee. And we sat at this table, and there were two little old ladies on the next table. We're watching all these people in these different coloured shirts, you see. And they knew it was the Rugby League Cup final, but they didn't know who was in the final. But they saw all these different coloured shirts, and they came to the conclusion that there must have been 3 teams in the final. Because of the different shirts. Well, that was the rule. Everybody went in their own team shirt.
Yeah.
It confused the Scots. I confused these two old ladies.
I won't say anything else, because already during the last half hour I've upset Yorkshire people, Australians.
Oh, plenty of time for Australians. I loved it. I enjoyed it being, what do they call us?
You was a pommy.
I was a pommy for 2 weeks. A pommy, aye. Went to the Hunter Valley for a day trip to the wine tasting.
Oh yeah, it's fable.
And going, the coach driver kept saying, "Can you see any kangaroos in the fields?" Nah. Coming back, 100 kangaroos in every field. And the wine was good.
That'll be why. So, Derek, it's been brilliant being in your company and having you talk about all your experiences.
It's been nice to reminisce, you know. I mean, Rugby League's obviously been my game from day one, and still is. Still is. I mean, nothing will replace it. Even though they keep changing the rules, and now they're changing the numbers again. I don't know why. They don't know where they're going. The only good thing that's come out of it, I think, is the fact that they set out to improve facilities for spectators, and they've done that. But the way it's been done, it's been all wrong. I mean, St Helens didn't do anything for 19 years, I think, at Knowsley Road. Never spent a penny on the ground, and we've still got Castleford with wooden stands and such close proximity to the Bradford where the fire disaster was. Don't know how they get a safety certificate for the ground.
I mean, fortunately, you know, Leigh are one of the clubs that has done something about it, aren't they? And we've got a brand new facility.
But it's not ours.
But we'll look to the future. Well, that's another discussion, I think, Derek.
That's not ours.
So anyway, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for having us as well.
My pleasure, David.
And join us again on Leigh Centurions TV very soon for another Dave Parkinson interview.